Lee with the E-Marketing Association. I also run Did It, a marketing agency. Out here at DigiMarCon Northeast, which is being held in Boston. And one of the speakers is Bob Coggill, who I've been connected with on LinkedIn, and we haven't chatted in a while. So I thought we'd start with what your session is today. What will you be speaking about?
Absolutely. It's personal branding and social media. So using social media to build your brand online.
So clearly, podcasts are one of the things that people use to build their personal branding. But some folks are sort of scared to be on camera or they're scared to be on audio. Do you feel like media training and just experience can get pretty much anyone to the point where they're comfortable being sort of on camera or on audio?
I believe that personally, that has been my case over the years. And I tell my students, I'm also an adjunct professor. I tell them practice makes perfect. And then I also say, but nobody's perfect. But the expression, if you will, the more you practice, the better you'll get. And mainly the more comfortable you'll get. Because, yes, a lot of people are afraid to be on camera, behind a microphone, etc.
Absolutely. So, should people start small and sort of work their way up? Maybe have friends help them do some recordings or podcasts, or use friendlies, people they already know.
Kevin, I used to, before all this technology, I took a program called Toastmasters, public speaking
Sure.
program, and I used to rehearse anywhere my speeches. I was very nervous in front of a group, long, long time ago. So in front of a mirror, seriously, on the chairlift with my wife when we were skiing in the car. So yes, I think practice on your own, practice with your own phone, stand it up on a tripod, and it will help over time if you want to be a public figure, if you will, online or in person too.
So some folks who are doing personal branding as part of their LinkedIn profiles and their other social media profiles too are doing it for their next job. And then other folks are doing it because they're sort of an evangelist or a C-suite member of their company. So how would you recommend people sort of find that balance? Because maybe their boss doesn't want them building their personal brand out there on the internet because it makes them more hireable, probably increases their worth to the next company. But at the same time, that it is very valuable if they're in a sales role or a business development role for them to be evangelizing the company at the same time as they build their personal brand. So how do you find that balance?
It's a great question. Wherever you work, assuming you have an employer, yeah, it behooves you, I think, to work it out with your employer and get an understanding of what their expectations are, if there are any limitations, kind of get a green light. Ideally, good companies with great corporate culture nowadays respect and see the benefit of someone having a strong personal brand. And I encourage people not just to be doing social media personal branding when they're looking for a job. Do it all the time. So again, when you get a new job, try to negotiate or even use the fact that you are good on social media, you are active as a personal brand. Try to make that part of your package. Please, allow me to do that on my own, and please realize that that's a benefit to you, employer.
So my next question has to do with sort of finding the balance between serendipity or scheduling things on LinkedIn, right? Because or any social media for that matter, right? Is I can actually try to put together an editorial calendar and force myself to do a half hour a week or whatever I've decided and do that for my personal branding, or I can just sort of engage with the stream of consciousness that's out there on LinkedIn, and I can do a lot of commenting. I can sort of insert myself into the conversations that other folks are having. And, if I had no other work to do, I could do that all day long. But the reality is the time is our most valuable asset. So how do you recommend a person to allocate their time, like, and to sort of decide how much time to allocate to sort of either scheduled social media content creation or content co-creation versus sort of serendipitous stuff?
You get have to find your happy medium. It's
Right.
a mix, and it's very unique to the individual. So I do, again, talk to clients or students and say, yeah, you can use scheduling tools. Some of them are free. Even the social media channels themselves have native ways, most of them, some of them at least, to schedule your content. And so if you're on a big business trip or for some reason indisposed, if that's the right word, you might want to schedule some content. But for the most part, I think doing it organically, seren, in a serendipitous manner, if you will, that is a great idea because that's usually more authentic, more
Right, right.
immediate. I came to this conference today. I've only been here 20 minutes or so. We're doing some great content, I think, right now. And I plan to
Absolutely.
share some pictures later on. And that's organic. It's planned to a degree, but it will appear extremely in the moment. That's usually the most credible, most believable, most authentic social media. That's my feeling.
Absolutely. Well, you mentioned pictures, and my nonprofit, Giving Forward, has a headshot platform called Good Pics, where we come out to conferences like this. Ordinarily, there's another sponsor, but in this case, my day job did it is the sponsor for this particular deployment. But I feel very strongly that people neglect their headshots on LinkedIn, and sometimes they become out of date, either just because they've been 10, 15 years old, or maybe the person, you know, had changed their hairstyle or changed their look. Maybe in your case, you got a new pair of glasses that you now use
That's nothing new.
as
I
a
get new pair of
personal
glasses all the
branding.
time. Yeah.
So I do feel like that's a super valuable thing for people to get, and we do it at conferences. We made it
Thank you for
completely
doing that, by the way.
turnkey.
I took advantage.
So, but certainly when people are job hunting, even though it's probably a little bit iffy that HR departments are using that as part of their decision making, right? Because they're supposed to be completely non using any discernible ways to discriminate, right? So, but the reality is your headshot on your LinkedIn conveys a lot of value, right? It conveys things which maybe subconsciously being used by HR, whether they even want to or not, right? It does say something about your age. It does say something potentially about your attractiveness or your charisma. And I do feel like people should put their best foot forward because it does matter. And it's sort of, I think, a little bit of a touchy subject because obviously HR people are never going to admit that it had any influence on their decision or willingness to bring somebody in for an interview. But we live in a world where it matters, right? So should people, either find a good Pix deployment and get one for free, or have a good friend who has some photography skills, maybe pose them and get a better headshot?
The photos are important, and that's visual content, and that's the next best thing to meeting the potential employer, potential client, connections in person. I have to joke a little. Yana took a great. Is it Yana? She
Yes.
took awesome, I think, photographs. Quality
Yeah.
speaking of myself, but I looked at them and I said, "Oh, geez, that looks a little bit older than the one I'm using on LinkedIn." So, say an employer, and I'm joking, everybody didn't want someone with yellow glasses and a lot of gray hair. Geez, I'd be, I'd be out of the competition. But I joke. It's important to be who you are. It's
Right.
important to be transparent and authentic. And there's always going to be, unfortunately, it's human nature, biases and and reasons for hiring or not. Hopefully, it doesn't come down to looks.
Sure.
But
Hopefully not.
let's say, geez, there's nothing you can really do about that. Whether before social media, after social media,
Yeah.
we are who we are. So I think it's important to put, as you say, your best foot forward. Just be yourself,
Right.
and whoever hires you, they're the one. They're the winners. They're the
Yeah.
ones who want you.
Absolutely.
It's a win-win. There you go.
Well, having done, been present for over 1,000 Good Pics pictures since I invented it last summer, I get a lot of folks who come up and say I'm a little bit concerned because I sort of like my younger self, right,
Yeah.
in my headshot. And so one of the sort of joking responses that I'll take is I'll say, why don't you get a professional headshot now? Because it may be the best one you've ever gotten. But at the very worst, you can just hang on to it for a few more years. So now when you're 4 years older,
That
you can
is.
use today's headshot 4 years
I
from
never
now.
thought of that. As you were saying that, I started to think that, and I was going to make the joke you made because I was going to say,
Yeah.
yeah, in
So
five
at least
years,
put it
that
in the
picture
can,
that I
right?
just took was going to make me look young.
Exactly. At a certain point, that'll be,
Yep.
a younger
That
version
is
of
a
you.
good one. That is a very good one. Yeah. Again, I think joking aside, it should be who you are, in the moment, and because when you meet someone in person, you ideally want it to be who you saw on camera or heard behind a microphone. So, that to me is the beauty of social media. Why I teach social media, I speak about it, because it's really hard to hide, if you will. You're fully transparent, and I prefer that in this day and age. It's easier to trust people and do business with people if you know who they are in the moment.
Absolutely. Well, that's all great advice, Bob. Thanks so much for joining me on an impromptu podcast
This has
here
been awesome,
at
Kevin.
DigiMarCon.
I hope maybe we can listen to it later on or watch it or wherever this is going. Thanks for listening.
Absolutely.
Thanks for watching. Thanks for interviewing me, Kevin.
My pleasure.
Yeah, that is